Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi have embraced each other on Mr. Modi's arrival in Kyiv, the first visit by an Indian leader to independent Ukraine. The two men's talks are likely to be tense. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Zelenskyy said it had been a devastating blow to see Mr. Modi warmly welcomed by Vladimir Putin. The two literally embraced on a day when Russian missiles killed more than 40 people across Ukraine. At the time, Mr. Zelenskyy expressed his disappointment, saying the image of the leader of the world's largest democracy hugging someone he described as the world's most bloody criminal will be remembered by Ukrainians. That said, correspondents say there's always a welcome for people on the world stage who come to Kyiv to stand shoulder to shoulder with President Zelenskyy. Well, for his assessment, let's cross live to London and speak with the RISE European Affairs analyst, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz. Good to see you, Dr. Laskiewicz. So just a few weeks ago, after Narendra Modi was in Moscow and, as we mentioned, was pictured embracing Vladimir Putin, prompting criticism from Ukraine and Western allies, Mr. Modi is now in Kyiv embracing President Zelenskyy. What do you reckon Mr. Modi is trying to achieve by this sort of hazardous balance, as one analyst described it?
There's nothing hazardous about it. It's actually a quite normal extension of Indian policy for decades. It's called non-alignment, and India actually invented it. During the Cold War, India was friends with Russia and with America. That's to say the West. Now, precisely the same, it's friends with Russia and with the West. And insofar as it's necessary to meet Ukraine to be friends with the West, it's in Ukraine now. But therefore, there is nothing about this trip which shows that he is standing shoulder to shoulder with Zelenskyy or anything like that.
But, I mean, could it be said, and I'm not trying to sort of push you in any particular direction, but could it be said that this is an attempt by Mr. Modi, beyond the non-aligned thing, to keep Western partners on side? Because, I mean, there's been particular targeted criticism of him as a result of what's been happening between India and Russia. An attempt to keep Western partners on side and then show that he's also willing to talk to Mr. Zelenskyy and show support for the Ukrainian people.
Well, that's all quite, I fully agree that it's an attempt to keep the West on side, to stay also, how can I put it, friends with the West, and, I underline, do business with him, just as he does business with Russia. But to say that he is coming here to support Zelenskyy is overdoing it. All he will do is say some warm words of vague support, and that's all. He's certainly not going to support Zelenskyy in any serious way. Actually, he stands for those nations which, in theory, could broker a peace deal because they're neither on one side nor the other. But in keeping with his non-aligned status, I believe that he will play a passive role and will not even try to do that. So, no, I don't think it's anything to do with standing with Zelenskyy, but it is, I fully agree, an attempt to keep the West with him.
And you mentioned that very crucial issue of peace. Could it be the case that this visit is to some extent a way forward in terms of a peace initiative and ultimately an attempt to find a truce between Ukraine and Russia, or is that unclear?
I don't believe India's going to play any part in making a peace treaty as such. Non-alignment for them means standing away from it all and not in any sense participating, not even making a peace process. So no, I don't think it's going to lead anywhere much. To be honest, India also has its own problems with, for example, China and Pakistan, which occupy their attention. And for them, the Russian-Ukrainian war is somewhere far away over there. Yes, he's been to Ukraine. Yes, he'll go to Poland. And yes, he'll stay with the West as much as he stays with Russia, but there's nothing which will help bring the Russian-Ukrainian war to the end from the Indian side.
So, I mean, what sort of support is Narendra Modi likely to offer Ukraine? I mean, he talked about this trip being one to sort of deepen economic ties and all that sort of thing. But obviously, we can see, as you mentioned, there is some visible moral support with this visit. I mean, his presence there alone seems to point in that direction. But is there anything more than that?
No, in my opinion, not. He's really interested in doing business. There you are quite right, especially with the West, which is, of course, a very rich trading partner, but Ukraine certainly isn't. And insofar as he can give some nice, bland words, which actually are quite meaningless in the sense of doing anything, then that's all he's going to say. I don't believe for a moment he's going to be anything like an ally or anything like that for Ukraine. But on the other hand, he's not an enemy either. That's the point of being non-aligned.
Well, I mean, we just saw pictures of him and President Zelenskyy at that memorial for children killed in the war in Ukraine. I mean, he had his arms around President Zelenskyy and was talking to him. I mean, obviously, we don't know what they were talking about, but we know that Mr. Modi has also always refused to condemn Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. In fact, India has been increasing imports of Russian oil, which has thrown a financial lifeline to Moscow, and that must not be very pleasing to the Ukrainians.
Well, precisely. And the fact is that they're increasing their business with Russia. If they could, they'd increase their business with the West. And as I pointed out, Ukraine's a relatively poor country, so there's not that much business in it. All he's really done is come to Ukraine to placate the Western critics so he can carry on trading on both sides. As for at the memorial for the children killed, India did say it was a tragedy for children to be killed, but it never condemned Russia for the atrocity, just as it's never condemned Russia for the invasion or anything else, and nor will it. It is going to stay just making money from both sides, being vaguely supportive of both sides, if you like, without actually committing to anything.
Dr. Laskiewicz, thank you very much indeed. Marek Laskiewicz is Arise European Affairs analyst. He was talking to me on the line there from London.